In a milestone speech in 1960, the national candidate for the Democratic Party, John F. Kennedy, told this nation why his Catholicism would not interfere with his responsibility as president, explaining that he believed religion was a private matter, that separation of church and state should be absolute, that his presidential decisions should be made without any regard to any outside religious pressure. Tonight, in our third story in the countdown, a shameful and shameless self-comparison to the 35th president by a man who did not advocate that separation, nor say that privacy was sacrosanct in religion, nor insist that you have as much right not to believe as he does to believe. Willard Mitt Romney, introduced but not endorsed by former President Bush at the latter's presidential library in Texas. Romney sought to dispel Republican fears about his Mormon faith, while only once using the actual word Mormon.
Let me assure you that no authorities of my church, or of any other church for that matter, will ever exert influence on presidential decisions. I will put no doctrine of any church above the plain duties of the office and the sovereign authority of the law.
Notice the careful phrasing there. He will not allow any church to influence his presidency, but as for religion as a whole, specifically a monotheistic religion, well, according to Willard Mitt Romney, that is at the very core of what makes us American.
In John Adams' words, we have no government armed with power capable of contending with human passions unbridled by morality and religion. Our Constitution, he said, was made for a moral and religious people. Freedom requires religion, just as religion requires freedom. The founders proscribed the establishment of a state religion, but they did not countenance the elimination of religion from the public square. We are a nation under God, and in God we do indeed trust. We should acknowledge the Creator, as did the founders, in ceremony and word. Our greatness would not long endure without judges who respect the foundation of faith upon which our Constitution rests. I will take care to separate the affairs of government from any religion, but I will not separate us from the God who gave us liberty.
We're joined now by Eugene Robinson, associate editor and columnist of the Washington Post. Gene, good evening.
Good evening, Keith. I can barely hear you over the roar of the founding fathers whirring in their graves as they hear Mitt Romney deliver his peroration on religion and freedom. It was quite amazing.
And one of them is saying, and you know, by the way, John Adams was the guy behind the Alien and Sedition Acts, too. Maybe you don't want to quote him, of all people, of the founding fathers, on what to do with the government today. But besides us, did anybody notice this extraordinary insult, almost a warning Romney just gave to every American who believes maybe in more than one God, or doesn't believe in any God, or just isn't sure it's anybody else's, and I'm going to choose my words carefully here, just isn't sure it's anybody else's goddamn business?
Really, all day I've been hearing hearing people say what a great speech it was, and you know, the best speech of the presidential campaign. I thought obviously I heard a different speech. What I heard was essentially a form of bigotry, essentially saying, you got to be at least a churchgoer in order to be a good American. Not just a believer, but a churchgoer, because freedom requires religion, not just faith or belief. You gotta go to church. It's just extraordinary.
Yeah. So if you have a religion that basically says churches are wrong and you should worship one-on-one, that doesn't count. Or no religion, a religion that says we don't have a religion, that doesn't count either. But besides this, the pandering to the evangelical base, bringing up judges in relation to the Constitution, which just should have a big flashing neon sign that says code word to evangelicals. Is that going to work? Is it going to accomplish what he thinks it's going to accomplish?
You know, maybe on the margins. I actually think, Keith, though, that for evangelicals who have, a real problem, doctrinal problem with Mormonism, he certainly didn't address them, because he didn't talk about Mormonism and didn't talk about doctrinal issues at all. So I don't see how it really advances the ball with them. On the margins, maybe people will say, well, gee, he does believe in God, but and for others, for people who like read the Constitution, I don't see how it helps them.
Right. If he believes in God, and if he gets elected, you'd better believe in God too. Let me play you something else he said about people who want complete separation of church and state. Here's that tape.
They seek to remove from the public domain any acknowledgement of God. Religion is seen as merely a private affair with no place in public life. It's as if they're intent on establishing a new religion in America. the religion of secularism. They are wrong.
Well, apart from sort of nominating himself to be a fill-in for Bill O'Reilly, did he not recognize the hypocrisy in that? He called secularism a religion, then called it wrong, ostensibly while giving this speech asking for religious tolerance.
Exactly. You see, apparently that slipped right past him. You know, we're talking Mitt Romney here, so who has been known to pander, let us say. So, I guess we'd be more worried if we thought he really meant to act on these words. I personally would be more concerned about Ayatollah-like tendencies in, for example, Mike Huckabee, who I think takes it very, very seriously.
Why, lastly, was this televised live? Why was this platform given to this man under these circumstances?
It's a very good question. I mean, he's got plenty of money. He could have bought the time on the networks if he had wanted to. But it was an extraordinary coup for the Romney campaign to get that much coverage on all the networks. So I'm sure maybe Rudy Giuliani will now give a speech on marriage, and that'll get a lot of coverage, too.
You just made my day. Eugene Robinson, columnist, and, of course, associate editor of the Washington Post. As always, Gene, great thanks.
See you, Keith.
Attention.